Hong Kong Jockey Club had called me and said, would you consider coming over? And I said, could I have a week to think about it? And they said, we'll give you 24 hours.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Off the Track Podcast, Daily Racing Form interview series, where we go beyond the past performances and the handicapping. This week, we had an opportunity to chat with Emma-Jayne Wilson, the highest earning female rider in the history of the sport. She broke the record of Julie Crone back in 2024, and we had a fantastic conversation with Emma-Jayne, talking all about how she got involved in racing, some of the ups and the downs. For her, even the downs, she always has a positive spin on it. Anytime she's gotten injured or she's had a setback, she tells you how she just felt like that was a part of the deal and what she signed up for in the sport. She has been all over the world riding races, and she has won some of the biggest races, including the Queen's Plate up at Woodbine. Enjoy this conversation with Emma-Jayne Wilson. Are you now a TV star? Because I saw you working on FanDuel TV with our colleague Ashley Mayu when you were covering the King's Plate, where in a different role. What was that like for you?
It was a lot of fun. Not ideally the best way I wanted to experience this year's King's Plate, but you have to take the best with what you can and make lemonade out of lemons, I guess. So it was a lot of fun, but I don't plan on doing that too many times in the future. We're getting back to being the TV star in the winner's circle instead.
That's what we know you as, the highest earning female rider in the history of the sport of horse racing, accomplished in 2024 when you passed Julie Crone. When you hear that and you think about all of the different people through the 100 years plus, all the different tracks all over, and you are the one that is at the top of that list as the highest female earning rider, like, what does that mean to you?
That to me is what it means to be a woman in a game where equality is there. I compete against the men.
Yeah.
There's very few sports where that is the norm, and so the milestone, the significance, is important. But that is exactly what it boils back to, is the championing of equality in sport that thoroughbred racing should be very proud of.
Now, unfortunately, right now, as we talk to you, you are recovering from a collarbone injury that was suffered in late July. How's the rehab going, both physically and mentally, right? Because those are two different types of rehab that you probably have to deal with when you're off the track.
Absolutely. This in a way, this is a hangnail, comparatively speaking. This is
Yeah.
the third time I've done the collarbone. Equestrians all around the world, not just jockeys, know collarbones are pretty par for the course. Unfortunately, rehab is going very well. Just waiting time frame for bones to heal and then get myself back to physically fit, strength wise, in that shoulder. I'm currently maintaining fitness. I've got quite a bit of specialists at my care, athletic therapist, sports chiropractor, a naturopath that maximizes my diet to ensure the best healing and moving forward. So it's not that we're just sitting around doing nothing. There's a completely different criteria that I go through day to day, jumping on, I got a spin bike and all the weightlifting that I'm allowed to do, and just keeping on top of what the doctors recommend and making sure that I'm ready for the next step each and every way, all along the way.
Horse racing is a sport that has so many ups and downs. You're, as a rider, as a trainer, as an owner, there's going to be a lot more losses than there are wins. But it was like a microcosm for you in just about a month or so, where you return in June 2025 from the really serious neck injury and the pelvis injuries that you deal with. And then you get unseated on July the 5th, right? And you're off for a little bit, but you come back. And I was just watching the replay of you winning the Grade 2 Canadian last night. And that all happens within about a month or so, right?
Yeah, and that is absolutely, like, horse racing, your ups and downs. I mean, if you're losing it 70% of the time as a jock, 70% of the time as a jock, you're doing very, very
You're
well,
awesome.
So
Yeah.
when you think about that perspective, you flip it around a little bit. Yeah, horse racing is a very difficult and challenging sport. And when you become a jockey, it's not if, it's when. And injuries for us, the velocity, the speed, and the limited amount of safety equipment. It's not like we have seatbelts and airbags to keep us
Yeah.
protected. When something goes wrong, quite often it's broken bones. So yeah, my October injury was quite severe: neck fracture, pelvic reconstruction. And like I said, this collarbone is a bit of a hangnail comparatively speaking. And one thing that I will guarantee is when I get back in the saddle, you will get the Emma-Jayne Wilson that everyone knows and is used to. So I can guarantee that. So, time will tell it, I got to do it one step at a time, one day at a time. And when I get a leg over the top of a horse, you can count on me.
For those who may not have known, the neck and the pelvis fractures in October of 2024, how bad were those injuries? I was reading into it. I was listening to you talk on some other interviews. I mean, you were bedridden, internal plates and screws. Tell us about what that was like for you and how serious it was.
It was very serious. The pelvic reconstruction was unique in the sense that when I went down, I rolled and hit the rail, the upright of the rail with my back, a couple inches higher, a couple inches lower. I think it would have been very different. Um, and they had to my sacrum was pushed inwards off of the walls of my pelvis, so they had to pull that back and reconstruct and put it all back together. Um, as well as I had a fracture, a C2 neck fracture, that was quite severe. And cons- based on the doctors, they monitored quite closely. They were ready to go in for surgery if anything shifted in the early stages, but the neck collar was immobilization was the best option at the time. Surgery can be quite extensive, so they stabilized it with a neck collar, which I had to wear for 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah, the bedridden, that was for the pelvis, maintaining, proper immobilization of the pelvis and keeping weight off of it ensured that the repairs that they had done stayed exactly where they wanted them to be. That being said, throughout all of that, yes, it was a long 7.5 months, but as I've said this before, the two words that my doctors all said to me was you know, was full recovery. I will get a
Yep.
full recovery, and that happened. And so it kind of makes this kind of scenario with a collarbone, which I've dealt with more than once. It's time. It's frustrating to sit and watch the horses run. Yes, I got to watch the King's Plate from the stands for the first time in maybe 20 odd years, but it's challenging. You have to shift your focus and stay on the up and up, and eyes on the prize down the road.
Are there any moments throughout that tough recovery where you're thinking, you know what? I don't know if I even want to get back out there. This is too much right now.
No,
That's
no.
great. Yeah.
And the one thing that, as a jock, it's like I said, it's not if, it's when. So you have to respect the risk of injury right from the get go. And that's
Yep.
something that I always have. This hasn't changed. This collarbone, the third time, the neck, the pelvis, humeral fracture in 2018, like all of these, that it hasn't changed anything. The focus and the desire and the will to win races hasn't changed at all. Um, I have to do a slightly different preparation right now. My gearing isn't getting up at 5:30 and going to throw a leg over one. It's a few other things, but the goal is still the same: to win races. It's just a little bit of a different path right now.
So let's go back to the beginning a little bit. How did you get all started? When did you start riding horses? Is this something early in your life as a girl when you're around horses? Tell us a little bit about how you got the bug in you.
Well, the bug was exactly that. I loved horses, always have, always will. And for me, competition, sport. I played lots of sports when I was a kid. Fast pitch was one of the beginning ones, as well as through rugby and through high school and whatnot. So you give me that competition, and you give me the love of the horse, and mix them together. That's horse racing right there.
Yep.
Woodbine was pretty much in my backyard, not quite. But my parents are from Britain, and I think the culture of horse racing, and we drove by Woodbine. My parents, let's go to the races. It was something that you did, and I think the first time I went, I was just in love. Absolutely, like this. That I'm gonna do that. And so over the course of my life, it was always the focus. Those career days in grade school. What do you want to be when you grow up? And yeah, there was a little bit of different paths, but the goal was always there. And once I had the opportunity to really give it a focus and give it everything I could with, the proper preparation and the outlook, I guess you could say the rest was history.
So you actually, and we're talking about different paths, you actually end up going to university, you study equine management, and
Yeah.
that is something that I'm just assuming probably gives you a different way of looking at races. You probably have different information, different sort of like a different mindset than some of the riders who may have not had as much schooling as you. Just a different way of looking at it. Are there things that you feel like you may have a unique insight, and talk a little bit about going to school and how that transitioned from you going to school to getting over to the racetrack?
Well, I think everybody's path is going to be different. My parents encouraged post-secondary education, and like I said, horses, what they are my love, and so I wanted something in that direction. So the equine management was actually not too far from my house, and it was an opportunity to just, continue my education, but also go in a direction. You don't really ride horses in your high school classes. You don't have college equivalent for being a jockey. This was, one of the closest things that I could do to sort of go in that direction but maintain my education. So it was very important. It gave me a background in terms of the business and the management as well, feeds and feeding, reproduction, and that's actually the direction I decided to go in. I had an opportunity to gallop some horses in between the 2 years in the summer. I was terrible, absolutely terrible. But a lot of that was because I didn't understand what was going to be required. Every discipline within equestrians are different. Yes, you can bring horsemanship to each, and what you've learned as a Western rider versus a dressage rider or a jump rider to the races are very beneficial. But every discipline is a little bit different, and being a jockey is different from being an exercise rider within the same game. So to take that early learning that I had on those, few days of, getting run off with, frankly, because I just wasn't strong enough. And I I still remember when I got on the horse and I was holding the reins. And show horse, the reins are like a quarter of the size. So I'm holding these reins, and they say, okay, now you're going to take a cross and double them over. I'm like, I can't even hold them on their own. How am I going to hold two of them at the same time? So there was a lot that was overwhelming for me because the preparation was I didn't have, but it gave me the foundation of what I needed to do. So when I went back to school, I sat down and I made a plan. And the plan was to go where the horses went. So I finished my college and I went on to a breeding farm. Start with the babies, right? Start with the breeding, start with the reproduction. I did that at a thoroughbred breeding farm, Park Stud, and I worked there for a year. But the entire intent was to be a jockey, and that was the goal. I worked with the horses, I worked with the stallions, and I worked with the babies up to being yearlings. Broke yearlings that year, and the little things about the reins right there. I knew what they were going to be like, and so it gave me that opportunity to build. And then that's when I moved on to, I was going to go to a thoroughbred training center and go from there as the second step and then onto the track. But my opportunity presented itself to go to the track with a trainer, CC Hotmans. And he gave me a lot of opportunities. And a couple years in from there, that's when I got out my jock's license.
And I believe we had your first mount in 2004. Do you remember? And what do you remember about like some of those first couple early mounts when you were getting on? I think one of them was at Fort Erie too. Like that was the first win, right?
Yeah, it was. So the first my first mount was a horse. I remember it just like it was yesterday. So I went to New Orleans the last year that they ever had the schooling races. So I rode about 35, 40 schooling races, and I think that was amazing. The experience where
Yeah.
there, I got a chance to learn from, some of the best exercise riders that just never became jockeys or were retired jockeys, as well as apprentice riders that were, I remember riding school and races with James Graham, like teaching me get in or get out going into the 3/8 pull as an exercise rider. You go, what? So there's a lot of little things that were developed then and there that was massive for preparation. So when I got on my first one, it was on a Friday night. It had rained all day. It was dirt back then, and we were going 7/8 of a mile, and it was a horse named Flying Sharon for Mr. Mike Doyle. I'll never forget. Inside draw, we loaded in the gate. I'm making sure that my goggles are organized because I'm going to need a lot. And the sun had come out, so it was this glistening, slick dirt soup racetrack. And I was like, let's go. Like, here we go. The doors opened. I think I went through 3 pairs of goggles in the first 16th of a mile. I was at the back of the bus, but that was the beginning. It meant so much. I still have it somewhere on VHS, if everyone knows what a VHS tape is.
Yeah, make sure that the tracking is good on the VHS,
Yeah.
right? When you put it, that's something that the younger people won't know, right?
Yeah, you talk about all the quality we're doing right now with digital, and that I don't even know. I would have been like a grainy blob going by.
So we get to the first win at Fort Erie, and for you, it doesn't take too long till you're actually up at the high levels and you're winning graded stakes races. And I think in talking with you and reading into it, it seems like it's because of the foundation that you had, that solid foundation already going in. By the time that you're on the racetrack, you feel confident, you feel like you've been working for a couple years and really figuring things out. And you get the first graded stakes win. What do you remember in 2005 about Classic Stamp?
So that's a Classic Stamp is an interesting story because she was a horse that I galloped. So leading into that 2005 season, when I was still galloping, she was one that I knew, and I knew very, very well. But back in those days, apprentices don't ride stakes, let alone graded stakes.
Yeah.
So one of the things was trying to get the call for her, and the my biggest draw that I had was, one, I was currently the leading rider, and two, I knew her better than anybody, and I kept pushing. Patrick Husbands had the call on her. He was riding her, and in addition to that, he had a couple horses going into one of the preps, so we knew he was going to, we were hopeful that he was going to pick somebody, the other horse. And sure enough, that happened. And I was able to get the call on her for the Canadian. And I remember that race so well. She was bred by Bill Siroccolit. She was special. She could finish. She had a stride, the size of the grandstand, and a heart to match. And when I turned her loose top of the stretch, I mean, EP Taylor is 3/8 of a mile, and I set her down. I had them in my sights. When I hit the wire, I was elated, like I couldn't believe it. So she was special. First stakes win was special, and it meant a lot.
And around that time, winning for Outstanding Apprentice, the Eclipse Award, and the Sovereign Award. First female rider to win the Woodbine riding title. Third apprentice ever to win the Woodbine riding title. And it's situations like that, right, where you prove yourself on a horse that in the morning with trainers that at the highest level. And that, I think, is what starts getting the other barns to go, oh, okay, she can win these big races and she can do it at the highest levels, right? Because you can be polite, you can be honest, you can go out there every morning, you can help them out. But until they see you winning some of the races at the highest levels, you're probably not going to get those opportunities.
Well, and that is what this game is about. I mean, jocks don't have contracts. You have to prove who you are and what you're capable of every step of the way. And that's exactly it. As you start to build momentum, you win those races and you show that you are capable, then it builds from there. And that confidence is probably one of the keys as being a rider, is to maintain that confidence and know what you are capable of, know that you're able to win races, even low level claiming all the way up to the top grade 1 level. And you showcase that focus and dedication, and that, the mounts will continue to come.
One of the stats I thought was really impressive when looking up a lot of your statistics was following that every year up until 2016, a graded stakes victory, and then some injuries and some time off happened following that. But just showing the consistency that winning at the highest level and some of the best races each and every year. And when you're given those opportunities, Mike Fox was a horse who ends up switching barns not long after winning the Queen's Plate, which is I'm going to say Queen's Plate, King's Plate, back and forth a bunch
Yeah.
of different times when we're talking about it. But as you're still early on in your career and you've been aboard this horse, I think a couple times before the Queen's Plate at that point, what do you remember thinking about your chances going in? Did you feel like this was a top contender? Did you feel confident? What was what was your confidence level like going in
I was
2007?
I wouldn't have traded with anybody in the race going in on Mike Fox. One of the key things for him, I think, was what Ian did for him going in. We won an allowance race on a Wednesday night. Like, it was a quieter day, not a big prep. It wasn't the plate trial. It was against older horses, but it built his confidence. And I think that was one of the key things with Mike Fox, was making him confident and letting him, feel like he was in charge. So going into the plate, I wouldn't have traded with anybody else for that reason. He was going in confidently. I was confident, and he ran with that level of confidence. Um, so he at the 3/8 pole, it doesn't look like he's gonna, win. Maybe hold on for third money, um, but everything you gave him, the more you gave him, the more he gave back. And I just kept on driving on him. Keep on riding, stay focused on the task at hand, and keep at it. And it paid off. We hit the wire in front. Last 70 yards is when we took control, and I'd won the Queen's Plate. It was a pretty magical moment.
And that's the victory that every rider is hoping for in their career. Victory like that, the Kentucky Derby, the King's Plate, the Queen's Plate, the biggest, the Breeders' Cup, the races at the absolute highest level. And you have an opportunity to do that, become the first female rider in the history of the Queen's Plate at the time, now the King's Plate. And so we have so many firsts that we've hit on with you and throughout your very impressive career. It's right around that time that you go to fairgrounds a couple different years, right? You ride down in the U.S.
Yeah.
And based on your schedule, you could have some opportunities to do that when there wasn't racing at Woodbine. Was that ever something you planned on doing more often, or just sort of when Woodbine season was off? Talk to us a little bit about your experience riding at the fairgrounds.
Well, for the most part, the way our apprenticeship works is you can elongate it using the winter as a break. And I think that's very, very important for young riders, because it gives you the chance to sort of, without having a clock ticking, it gives you a chance to sort of take a step back and digest. So in '04, I started and I rode about 30 odd races. And then I went back to the fairgrounds as an exercise rider and sort of processed what I had learned. And then the goal was to go back in the spring of '05 with the full season to December at Woodbine. So I think giving that time to, digest and, recalculate what you've learned and build from there was massive for me. Um, so then again, elongating my season and going back as an exercise rider when I was still an apprentice the following year, again to gallop at the fairgrounds. So it was only natural for me, once once my apprenticeship was over as a journeyman, to go to the fairgrounds and ride. So yeah, I spent a few winters there. I would have stayed a little longer, but when I was there in 2000, the end of 2007, '08 winter, I was actually invited to go to Hong Kong. I had moved all of my stuff, my dogs, all of my, I'd gone from Canada all the way down, and I was literally in an apartment ready to go. And Hong Kong Jockey Club had called me and said, would you consider coming over? And I said, could I have a week to think about it? And they said, we'll give you 24 hours. So I said, okay. So that we had to do some readjustments. My dad had to fly down, get all my stuff, and bring it all back to Canada. And I jumped on a plane and flew to the other side of the world.
And on top of winning all the big races, Queen's Plate, graded stakes, becoming the first North American female rider to be granted a riding license in Hong Kong. That had to make you feel pretty good. Talk to us about that experience and how did that come about and how did it play out?
Well, I had been initially invited to go compete in their International Jockey Challenge at the end of 2007, and it was an amazing experience. So when I did receive the call from the Jockey Club to come back over, my goal had always been Woodbine, so I went for a limited time frame. It was just over two and a half. It was about 2.5 months. So that I can make it back to Woodbine for opening day. The experience that I had in Hong Kong was overwhelming, to be frank. I was still, early 20s. I'd gone to the other side of the world. I didn't know Hong Kong racing very well. I didn't know the way they do things. North American versus other jurisdictions, we don't classify them the same way. They use a classification system with handicaps, etc., as well as there's no agents. So there I was on the other side of the world, completely overwhelmed with everything, as well as tasked with being my own agent, which I
Not
was
speaking that
terrible.
language, right?
I will never be my own agent again. Actually, Hong Kong is quite, with it being a UK based colony, British based colony, English is quite prevalent everywhere. So that wasn't the challenge at the most part. It was knowing the language of the way they do the racing there, and
Sure.
I did my best. I probably Others could have done better. And I think I was frustrated as well. I think I finished. I didn't get a win when I was there. I think I finished 7 or 8 seconds beaten like this. And it was a bit frustrating. So when I did leave, I probably could have handled it a little bit better. Where I had said that I criticized the way we, as an international jockey, was brought in. I didn't know anything. I was sort of just thrown in and
Sure.
overwhelmed. Where I would have appreciated if we could have had agents, for example, not so much to do the work, but also just introduce you to the way it's done. And I do think that a lot of other jurisdictions, other riders that do end up going to other sides, there's a better preparation. I was last minute. I didn't have the foundation and the preparation to go to Hong Kong to be at my best. And I think that's where, if I was to go back, I would probably commit for a longer period of time. I would do my research and set a foundation to understand it better so that I would, gear for success. That would be the key for me.
And like every experience, you learn from that. You take some things from it and you grow from it. And you have had some very cool experiences all over the place. 2011 Female Jockey Championship at Pimlico. You get a chance to ride against some of the other top females, and you actually win that thing. And then, very cool afterwards, you donate the prize to charity. What was that like, getting an opportunity to ride in something that's a little bit unique? We don't see it happen anymore. It wasn't something that was for a long period of time. This is something that does take place more internationally, and we'll talk a little bit about the Sugar Cup after, but we don't see too much of that in the US and in North America.
Well, I think this is one of the things, as a female rider, I don't like to focus on being a female rider. I'm just a jock that happens to be female. But there are times and places where showcasing and being that role model and, you know, drawing attention to the fact that women can compete at the same level as men is a very important thing in the world, all over the
Yeah.
world. So the jockey challenges that I've been a part of that are focused in that direction, the gender being, a proper segregation and a proper focus, Pimlico, Georgianne Hale, she's done a magnificent job of organizing things that showcase racing to the best of, the what we are capable of doing. So to go there and compete and showcase what we are capable of now, as well as acknowledging the history and the challenges and the trailblazers, as they say, to pave the way for what we're capable of today. That those are important things to do.
And you had an opportunity to do that, to show your talents over at Ascot a couple different times. I believe you went over there, and you were part of the first all-female team to win the Sugar Cup. What do you recall about that experience riding over at Ascot?
So the first time I went to Ascot was in 2006. As I said earlier, my parents being British, I understood and knew the significance of, the ground that I was being invited to compete on. Um, I was uh, I was amazed. Um, Fast forward, I've been back quite a few times, and yes, the first time they introduced an all women's team, I was a part of that, and we did end up winning. Actually, the female riders team has won the Sugar Cup quite a few times. This past year was the first time that they didn't they disbanded the female team and put women on each and every team. I think so. Just goes to show you how equality, how great we are in the game. So riding Ascot is just so much fun. The Sugar Cup is very unique in the sense that it has the teams, um, but they ensure that the game is kept to, to the highest of quality. They get some of the best horses that they have over there for an event like this, and it's to take that competition and shift it just that little bit where it's not we're not talking about shipping for the Breeders' Cup and grade one or races, with this in mind. It's just that little bit different. We're all still trying to win the races, but the energy and the excitement and the fun of it is just amazing. And to compete against and with some of the best riders throughout the world is one of the most unique experiences that I've been a part of. And so every time that they invite me, I always, jump at the chance to participate, because Ascot knows how to do it, and they do it very, very well.
We've had a chance to talk about Mike Fox, some of the graded stakes winners. Who are some other of maybe the best horses that you had a chance to be on, some memorable horses, any that kind of stand out through the years that were like a big win, a big moment, or some of those that you felt like, wow, this is one of the best that I've been on?
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, one of the horses that was pretty impressive right from day one that I sat on her was Lady Spitespear for Roger
Yeah.
Atfield. I remember when she broke her maiden first time out. I'd been getting on her going into her first start, and you could tell that she was talented, but to see the personality and the race awareness when those doors opened the very first time, and she bowled her way early forward and was like, this is over now. Like, I'm winning now. I was very impressed with, and she had this level of understanding what was coming, what was going on, that you didn't see a lot in young horses. There was greenness involved. She wasn't green. She was just a professional. Um, Another one that really sort of sits with me is one of Mr. Frank Stronach's Hunter's Bay. He was amazing. He won a lot of graded stakes. But one of the key stories, and it's in a way a part that I was told this about him. Behind the gate, my header at the track at Woodbine, Sandy would always have Hunter's Bay, and he'd bring him up towards the gate. And he told me this story that he would stand just before they loaded the gate, and he'd watch Hunter's Bay. And Hunter's Bay would look and look at every single horse and make eye contact with every single one. And there was a bravado. There was this look, come on, you want to go against me. And Sandy told me that he would watch, and every other horse that he made eye contact with would look away.
Kind of
And
cower.
he and the only one that turned and squared up to him and said, "All right, let's go," kind of thing, was Wise Dan, and we finished second. So,
So,
and that level of the personality of who he was, that as a competitor was fantastic. So
all the big wins, traveling all over the world, those accomplishments are great. But I'm sure something to you that was probably also very meaningful, getting a chance to win the Avelino Gomez Memorial Award. That's an award for Canadian Thoroughbred. It's a horse racing honor given annually to a jockey, Canadian born, raised, or a regular in the country for more than 5 years who makes significant contributions to the sport. So for you, getting a chance to win all of the big races on the track, but then get acknowledged for something like that off the track, how does that make you feel?
Oh, honored, absolutely honored. Avelino Gomez unfortunately passed in such a tragic accident, but he still stands overlooking Woodbine every single day. There's a massive statue staring down at the paddock that commemorates him and his memory. And I remember when I got the phone call for that uh, prestigious acknowledgement. That meant a lot. I mean, Woodbine is my home. I was born and raised just around the corner. I am a true Canadian, and that's one of the reasons why I take a lot of pride in saying Woodbine is my home, and to have that acknowledgement on in that regard of it being Toronto based. The significance meant a lot to me.
You've won the biggest race in Canada. You've won a lot of the biggest races up there at Woodbine. Do you have any goals that you set for yourself individually now still that you'd like, big races or anything that's like on the bucket list for you to try to cross off?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime I get a chance to get to the Breeders' Cup, I had a chance.
Sure.
I ran second in the 2010 Juvenile Turf with a Woodbine-based horse. So I would absolutely love to tick off a Breeders' Cup on my list. Um, but you can go back and mention almost every major race anywhere. And what it really boils down to is being around good, fast, honest horses. And I've been doing this for a very long time. I've won a lot of races, like you said. And if I was to single out races, that it wouldn't be fair. It's more the races about is it's horse racing. So if my goal is to be on fast, ferocious, dedicated horses. And if I can do that, that's my goal every single day. That means more to me than anything.
What would you say your style is as a rider? Do you think you have one, or you prefer being like on the lead or coming from out of it? If you were describing yourself as a rider, what would you say that maybe some of your strengths are?
Whew, that's a good question. I remember when before I ever started riding races, they one of the key criticisms about women in racing is that girls aren't strong enough. Girls can't ride because one, they can't hold the horses, and two, they can't finish. There's no strength there. So that was something that I took a lot to heart, and I said, if no way, like no.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to challenge me? I'm a competitive person. I'm going to be one of the strongest riders that I can be. And that is something that I take a lot of pride in. You get them to the eighth pole and I'll get them to the wire. That strong late finish, I will give everything. I'll lay it all out, and you can count on that every time.
And that takes a lot of work and preparation. What's an average day like for you? Let's say it's a Saturday. You've got a couple mounts at Woodbine. What would that be like for you in the mornings? You out there working a couple? Do you have a little time between and you go back to the track? Or take us through what a busy Saturday might be like for you.
A busy Saturday is actually quite track based, and it wouldn't be a couple, it would probably be about 10.
Yeah.
So typically a Saturday would start at 5:30, 6 o'clock. You're getting on, depending, six, seven, 4 to 6 horses in the mornings, getting them primed for the following weeks. And yeah, you'd get after morning training, between 6 and 10 o'clock, you'd transition into the jocks room. That is when I do most of my prep work, my homework, my handicapping. I watch a lot of replays as I go through the form. And mark off each and every race, each and every horse, and each and every piece of competition, and sort of map out what I think is going to happen the most likely, and then plan B through Z, frankly. And then at about noon, that's also when I have breakfast, lunch. I usually just stick with high protein, pretty benign stuff, scrambled eggs and one slice of bacon just for a little flavor. That's my go-to. I'm
Everything's better with bacon, right? Yeah.
absolutely. And my other vice, I'll admit, is a Dr. Pepper. I love a Dr. Pepper. That's
Sure.
my, oh yeah, I love
Yes.
it. So, that's the prep, do all my homework, get showered, get changed, and switch from being, Emma Wilson the morning and whatnot, and switch into competition mode. And that's pretty much it. The races hit, and each and every race. Bang, bang, bang. One of the keys to being a very good and efficient, successful jockey is, being able to, what I would say, turn the page. Every single mount that we've been given the opportunity is a different opportunity. It's a new game, it's a new race. It's, different clients, different owners, different trainers, different crew behind them. So you have to be able to go on race 1 the same way you go into race 12, with the same level of focus and composure. And I think that's something that is very unique in this game. A football team, they go out there, they play their one game.
Same
Maybe they're the double
coaches,
header.
right? You're
Right.
playing for the same. How the way that you just pointed it out, I hadn't really heard it put that way, but you have to make sure that you're being very fair to each individual
Absolutely.
group of connections. You can't take and hold on something that you're sour on from the last race, where maybe you did get unlucky, maybe something happened where you did get stuck,
Yeah.
and you're thinking about it. That's not
You
fair to
can't.
that next group to hold on to
And
that.
that's where it is your job to be able to take that unlucky, or frankly, you need to know how to use it as well. Maybe you got unlucky because the inside is looking a little dead today. So
Yeah.
you have to take what you need from it. Or maybe you just won by a dirty nose and you were 20-1, and that energy of, invincibility, you're going to take that with you to the next one too. So there's a level of knowing what you can apply to what's going to benefit versus what's going to hinder. And so you go race by race and horse by horse, and give it your best every single time. It's a unique game.
If you weren't a jockey, what do you think you would be doing for a living?
I have no idea. Um, I thought of many different things when I was growing up. I thought about being a veterinarian because I wanted to be close to the horses. Again, I even thought about being a blacksmith because, being close to the horses, and honestly, the watching those guys work, men and women, shoeing these horses. It's unique. It's a type of husbandry that I have no skill at. There's a blacksmith that would buy this. Says, here, you wanna knit this one, or crimp this down. I'm like, no, I'll leave that to the experts. So, there were a lot of different avenues that my path could have taken me on, but this one always came back, and so I think this was my destiny.
When you're not at the track or working, where might we find you? Any hobbies that you and your family do? Anything off track that you kind of do to get your mind off of it a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, that is, again, same idea as one race to another, knowing how to, disassociate but yet use it. When I go home, I'm Emma Wilson. I'm not the jockey. Like, yes, I am. My kids, my wife and I are the parents of twin 8-year-old girls. And that is a very large part of what I do when I'm off track. They are athletes. They swim, they play soccer. They've currently just been, awarded their next level in karate belt. So they're very fierce competitors, dedicated, and it's an absolute joy to watch them train. I mean, seeing them line up on a punching bag, or it's quite impressive. I
Exhilarating,
hope.
probably. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hope that I'm passing on my passion for athletics from me to them. I think I am. And that being said, we even have athletic dogs. My wife and I, we are involved in whippets. We've been connected with one of the top show breeders in Canada, and we are working towards that. We have a couple at home right now, that are, one has been awarded grand champion in conformation. But in addition to that, we train them to lure course. Lure coursing is sort of, mock hunting, almost like racing. It's fantastic. We have our own lure machine, so we take them out, we train them, and hook up the pattern, and away they go.
Awesome.
So we would love to breed one day. That is something that in our future, I'm sure of it. So, um, But yeah, but in addition to that, I mean, I've had the chance being off with the collarbone to utilize our cottage quite a bit more. So there's a balance of going out onto the dock at 6 o'clock in the morning as the sun rises with a coffee in your hand is a beautiful way to sort of balance out and zen. So
Do you watch any TV shows, any movies, anything like that that you're into right now?
um television, etc., isn't really high on our list.
Sure.
It's it's mainly motivated by our children. They've got the
Yes,
Disney Channel that they love, and
I know.
they're
I got a 6-year-old son. But we probably have a lot of the same shows on, like in the house. I was gonna say,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of
yeah.
the
So
background noise, basically.
absolutely, absolutely. So, and to be honest, I'm okay with the fact that maybe through the winters when it's a little quieter. When I was injured in bed, I was watching quite a lot. I mean, Ted Lasso was just brilliant to watch.
Oh
That was
yeah.
amazing,
Oh yeah.
among others. And as of right now, I'm reading a lot of Jack Reacher. The Lee Child Jack Reacher novels have been nice, easy read. Some of them are listening to on the drive in to and from work, but it's good, easy listening. Nice to sort of focus on something else.
We know you're based up at Woodbine and you've been all around the world visiting tracks. Are there any that really stand out to you that you loved to visit? Or on the opposite, have there been any that you haven't had the chance to visit that you would really love to get to?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Ascot has been really fun for me over the years, so it holds a special place for me there. I would love to be able to compete a little bit more through England because I think it's just so fascinating that the level of competition there is different. The horses and even just down to the courses. I mean, us in North American racing, it's a flat track. You go around in a circle, whereas in Britain, it's much more complicated. You get your different courses with your different ground, undulations, hills. So it adds so much more to the game, and that fascinates me. um, in addition to that, I would love to get to Australia at some point. Just as a fan, or even just to compete, it would be amazing. It's on the other side of the world. It's not an easy ship kind of thing. So I would love to get a chance to get over there and be a part of it over there as well.
Okay, I had a question that was coming in from producer Lucia, which is a great one. She sent it in, and because she's listening as we are going back and forth, and she's very curious, and said, "Did the injuries make her change the way she rides at all? Have you had to alter anything at all, or you don't want even to think that way?"
No, mentally, physically, nothing. I mean, thankfully, um, nothing has been damaged enough where I've had to physically change the way
That's
I
great.
I I ride. Thankfully, and mentally, no. I think there is there's a perspective that one needs to respect, and I said this before as a jock. It's not if, it's when. And if you dismiss the risk, or if you don't respect the risk, as injuries come, that can change your perspective. I think for me, I always respected what it was, what the risks were, and what they entail. And so no, it doesn't change anything for me.
After a big winning day, let's say a Queen's Plate, a graded stakes win, a day where you've had multiple victories, what's like the celebration meal, drink of choice for you and the family if you're celebrating maybe a restaurant or your favorite meal?
For me, it's celebratory. I don't mind a decent glass of champagne is always
Sure.
welcome, in
Yep.
that level. But a brilliantly grilled steak with some asparagus, and depending on what the weight requirements are down the week, whether it be mashed potatoes or some rice with that. But you give me a steak, it could be as big as a house. I will eat. I love it. It's my favorite.
What's something you think a lot of people might not know about Emma-Jayne Wilson?
Oh. Well, in a minor side note, something that I would like to pursue, but I respect the time and requirements to be able to do this properly. I would love to participate in falconry. Yeah, birds of
Awesome.
prey. have always fascinated me ever since I was little. I would draw horses and falcons, and and so to be a part of that, to go forward with that is something that I would like to pursue. But like I said, the dedication and the time required for that is massive. You're taking on a living creature and training them, etc. And it's not the type of thing you can just do like with your dogs. It's something that you have to dedicate to them, as well as hunting with them as well. So I respect the requirements, and so I know that I don't have that the time to pursue it right now, but it will come. I promise you.
As we finish up with you, I know you've been involved with different organizations. Are there any, charitable organizations, event, fundraisers, anything that you want to plug, or anything you want to mention before we let you go?
One of the things that I feel very strongly is the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. The way they stepped in, the way it was created to ensure that the horses that we love and we participate with are cared for properly, and that the organizations below them, it's not that, yes, they are one organization, but the whole goal is to better many for the horse racing population in general. And the way they do things, the sponsorship, the accreditation, etc., I think is something we should be proud of.
I have to thank you so much. I've seen your name in the past performances so many times through the years, but never had the privilege of chatting with you. And now when I see it, I'm going to be thinking about falconry, or the show dogs. I'm thinking about all the different things that your family is involved in, and just the talks that we had. It was an absolute privilege for me, and we will be following you on social media. I'll make sure that we give out your plugs that we can do so. And we wish you the best of luck on the recovery. We hope to see you back out in the winner's circle very soon.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Off the Track podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Amazon, Audible, Spotify, and on YouTube. We'd always love to hear from you in the comments section. Make sure you're tuning in next week for another very special guest.